Things got seriously tense during a recent episode of Mike Bond's The Bonfire podcast. Henry Cejudo was the guest, and when the topic of that infamous Belal Muhammad interview came up, Cejudo didn't hold back. Apparently, things behind the scenes were way more chaotic than anyone knew. Cejudo revealed there was almost a physical altercation involving himself, Kamaru Usman, and Belal Muhammad. Here's exactly what Henry had to say. It was, I almost got kicked, bro, like there's punches were thrown, dude. And I had a messed up ankle at that time. So Kamaru Usman and B, I almost kicking to my head, dude. Luckily, I did a little slip, but yeah, it was definitely rated R. That's wild. Punches thrown, kicks aimed at the head, and Henry dodging shots on a messed up ankle. No wonder he called it rated R. There's clearly more tension between these camps than we thought, and if it ever spills into the octagon, it's going to be personal. Meanwhile, over on the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe is calling for a major rule change in the UFC. He's taking aim at one of MMA's longest-standing restrictions, strikes to the back of the head. According to Rogan, it doesn't make sense for that area to be illegal when other sensitive targets like the temple and eye socket are fair game. Here's what he said. You know, Eddie Bravo talked about this all the time the old days of MMA when a guy got someone's back. They would just drop elbow down on his head, back of the head, if you have your back and the head is there. All this punching just to the side is not realistic because you realize you can't just lie flat on your back. You're like, you better protect the back of your neck because it's very, very vulnerable. So guys would have to, when they lie on the back or lie on their stomach, they have to protect their head, and then they would have to try to roll. They would have to do something to get out of that position instead of just realizing that you can kind of hold there and cover the sides of your face because you could leave the back of your head exposed. I mean, I'm sure if you talk to a neuroscientist, they say that's a particularly vulnerable area. But man, isn't the temple, aren't the eye? Everything is so vulnerable. And all those illegal, you could elbow a dude in the eye socket. 100% legal. So explain to me why the back of the head is so much more vulnerable. I don't get it. It's a controversial take, but it's classic Rogan, pushing the boundaries and questioning rules that have been in place since the early days of the sport. Whether or not the UFC takes this seriously remains to be seen, but this isn't the first time fighters and analysts have debated the inconsistency in striking rule. From near fights on a podcast to calls for rule changes from the biggest voice in MMA, the sport is always evolving, and clearly, the drama isn't just inside the cage. If you enjoyed this update, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on what's really going down in the fight world.